Hi guys, and welcome to the fourth video blog in the series, and this time I'm going to go through the mixdown of the track Machine vs Magic. So in the previous three blogs I went through the creation of the song through the MIDI tracks. I went through the guitars and bass, the different synthesizers, the drum kit, and the percussion loops, things like that. So what I do now in the mixdown is I prefer working with audio tracks. So I bounce all my MIDI tracks to audio. Now how I go about doing this in Pro Tools is pretty straightforward. I will just quickly just sort of demonstrate it. If I So if I've got, say, this metal guitar track, and I'm going to bounce this to audio, I create a stereo audio track, and in the input here of this stereo track, I can go to plugin, choose Vienna Ensemble Pro, V Metal, and then choose this output 3 and 4. Then what I do is I'll bring up this Vienna Ensemble Pro instance with the V Metal guitar, and I choose as an output, and it should be master bus, but I've changed this to output 3 and 4. So now this will directly output the signal from here into the audio track in Pro Tools. And so there's just a matter of playing the song back, by chord arming this track and playing it back, recording it, and then it's a matter of rinse and repeat for all the other tracks. Now there is a couple of exceptions, and that would be this battery 4 drum kit and the 3 synthesizer tracks. Now this is the case because these synthesizer tracks are not using Vienna Ensemble Pro. They're just inserts in their own instrument track, and so there isn't a provision. If you go into here, this audio track, in this plugin section, there is no output there for massive or absinthe. So to record that to an audio track, I set up these sends, and I send that to a bus and name the buses appropriately, so absinthe bus, massive bus, or vacuum bus. And so assign the output, get some signal there going to that send, and I can go here to the output input of this audio track and select bus, and here you've got absinthe, massive, and vacuum bus sitting there. So you can just select that, and you can record your synthesizers. Now the other exception was this battery 4 kit. Now that is the case because what I want to do with the drums is not just record the drum kit in one track, but record each element of the drum kit as separate audio tracks. So what I can do is choose the kick, snare, or any of these elements. First right click on this pad, go to output down here, I can go direct out, and I can go stereo 1, 2, all the way up here to stereo out 31 and 32. So I'm going to say choose that to 3 and 4, and that's just the kick there. And I can go to input, plug-in, battery, stereo output 3 and 4, and then that would then record just the kick drum into this stereo audio track. So that's a bit of a long process, but if you do it efficiently, you can sort of set it up and just play through the song a couple of times and get them all down to audio tracks, which I've already done that already. So I'm just going to bring them up now, the audio tracks I've done previously. It's here, and I don't need these MIDI tracks and instrument tracks anymore. So I can just go here and delete all those, and obviously by deleting it I save it as a different file. I definitely keep my MIDI tracks and information in in a file Pro Tools session. I do not delete that information, because that's obviously key to making any changes. So okay, so here's my audio tracks, and I've divided them up, and you can see in different colors. The first 4 here is the Evolve Mutations for Score Menu 5 loops, and these next 4 are the Score Menu 3 loops from Evolve Mutations. So that's basically the 2 percussion loops. And then you've got these purple tracks is the battery 4 elements, all the different kicks, snares and effects. We'll go into these auxiliaries a bit later. I've got my Atmos tone here, my bass guitar, my V metal guitar, lead guitar, the unhinged tremolo, and the haunted piano, and then the 3 synthesizers, all as audio tracks. Now what I've done as well here now with the percussion loops, so these first 4 here are output to a bus, and I set up this auxiliary, so I've got here percussion loops 1, and that's the same color as this one here, so I know that that's these 4 summed into this auxiliary channel here. Now these 4 here, these 4 go into this percussion loops number 2. Same thing, they output to a bus and get into this auxiliary channel. And then I've got these battery tracks. I output that to drums dry, and that goes into this auxiliary track as drums dry. Then I send up some sends where I've got some to a bus. So I've got drum verb and drum compression. So the compression comes into this auxiliary, and my verb comes into this auxiliary. So now between these 3 I can mix the level of dry drums with some reverb drums and some parallel compression drums. And then this fader here is these 3 summed together. So I use these to get the mix right between the drum dry, wet and compressed, and I'll get my total battery drums in through here. So basically once I've mixed all this and set it all up, I'll have to go down to the end here and worry about from this track onwards, and I just have to worry about down here. So I've got my drums, my percussion loops, my Atmos track, bass, guitar, etc. And then I can do my final mix. So let's have a look at some of this with the percussion loops here. I have added a little bit of EQ here to some of the tracks. Not too drastic, but just I thought just to make a little bit of changes there to make it fit better in with the mix. Same with my battery drums. I've added not a lot of EQ, only just really on the kick and the snares. Let's have a look at this is the kick. Just a little bit extra here in the lows around 50 Hertz, and there's a little bit extra around the about 4K or 5K, just to get a bit more of the attack of that kick drum. In the snare number 1, just add a little bit more around the 1 kilohertz range, just to differentiate it from the other one, and just cut off some of these low frequencies and some of the high frequencies that we don't need. Same here with the other snare, only just fractionally just boosted around 2.5 to 3.5 kilohertz range. Give a bit more brightness to it, cut off some of these low frequencies. The hi-hats just dropped off a lot of the frequencies below 250 Hertz and boosted up a little bit around the 7-8 kilohertz, 9 kilohertz, just to get a bit of life and some brightness to those hi-hats. This beat snare, like an effect, just yeah, dropped off a lot of frequencies and boosted up around this mid-range. So this is some of the EQs I did on those tracks. Now with the compression, you know, sent all the tracks to the parallel compression, and so we can have a look at I just used this Vienna Symphonic Library, the VSL compressor, a ratio of about 10 to 1 roughly, and dropped the threshold down here to about what, -18 or something, and using this FAT rather than the optical compressor, I just used the FAT, which is like an analog compression. So that gives me my parallel compression signal there. With the verb, I just used a basic one from Pro Tools, D-Verb, just a Hall, a large one. Obviously, 100% wet signal through there. And with the verb, I only really sent the snares and the effects and things like that. I didn't send the kicks to the reverb. I didn't want that muddying up the signal at all. So that's pretty much, you know, with the drums. I didn't do a lot of EQing. I was quite happy with the sounds as it is. Like Native Instruments did a good job of just making the sounds are really nice as they are. Yeah, with the drums verb as well, I did add send through a little bit of that to the compression as well in the parallel compression, just a little bit though, and that here, just a little bit of signal from that reverb into the parallel compression, and that just adds a little bit more to it. I find it just adds a lot of life to the mix. Okay, so then in the drum group, all I did add a limiter. It's not really doing a lot there, but it is just protecting you from just any little tiny spikes that happen through the mix. Okay, so same with these percussion loops 1 and 2. I have got some compression and then this limiter, because I haven't sent any of these here of the percussion loops to any compression, so that's why I just do it on the auxiliary, just put a bit of compression on there. I do send a bit of the percussion loop number 2, some of these tracks, like 3 of them, to the drum verb over here, just a little bit, and that's just gives them a little bit of life. I just thought they were a little bit, just felt a bit too dry, so I just sent them a little bit to the reverb as well. Alright, so let's just go to the Atmos tone. I didn't do anything with that. I was quite happy as is. Didn't want to. I played around with some EQing on it, and that just didn't add anything to it, so I left as is. Don't be ever afraid just to leave a track as is if you're happy with it. Okay, this is the bass EQing. So I dropped off a bit around that below 100 Hertz, only because I didn't want it conflicting too much with the kick drums, and it was quite fat enough as it was without having all these lower frequencies just to muddy it up. So I did that, but I did boost around this between 100 and 250. I did boost around there. Took out some of these, the 1 kilohertz mid-range out of the bass, but I did boost around 2.5 to 3K just to give a bit of more attack to the bass strings as you're hitting the string, get that bit of attack sound. So that's the bass guitar EQing. Now with the metal guitar, it was completely dry, so I did add a little bit of this hybrid reverb from Vienna Symphonic Library. It basically combines algorithmic reverb with convolution reverb. That's right. bit of mental blank there. So yeah, you combine some reverb impulses from real spaces, but then you can tweak it with using some algorithmic stuff. So I just added a little bit of a wet signal there. It's got 0 dry, but minus 17% decibels wet signal. Just gave the guitar a bit of life. And then the EQing, I took out some of these low frequencies of the guitar too, didn't need it, but also I boosted quite a bit here in this 1.5K to 6K, because I felt it was lacking a little bit of life in there, and it was just too muddy. So I found it get more of that mid-range of the guitar sounded really good. Now the lead guitar, happy with that, didn't want to muck around with that, so I didn't EQ that. This unhinging tremolo, just took out a lot of the low frequencies, didn't need, and boost up a little bit of these high frequencies. And the haunted piano, same, got rid of a lot of the low frequencies, didn't need it, and just boosted up in certain little areas where this is where the main notes are being played, and this is where the harmonics are, and I felt just boosting there made it stand out a little bit more in the mix. The synthesizers, the big string and Advoca, this is what I did to it. Again, took out a lot of the low frequencies, because the bass and kick drum and things like that were occupying that, and even this lower mid-range took out, because it's where the guitars and bass are sitting, and I boosted up in some of these high frequencies to make those pads or synthesizers stand out a little bit more in the mix. And the arpeggiated synthesizer, Bruce's VTO, boosted around a bit here in that mid-range, which I thought just was lacking a bit in the original sound, and obviously cut out some of the low frequencies. So that's pretty much like the mix that I've done. Let's you want to just have a listen to some of the changes and how it affected the sound. We just play the bass, and I'll just take the so that's without the EQ. Probably notice it more of a difference if I put this kick in. So if I take that EQ off, you can see how it sounds a lot more muddier, and that sounds a lot more definition there between the kick and the bass. We're just making those EQ changes. Let's have a listen to the guitar. So that's without EQing. So lost a lot of the lower end. But when you put that in with the bass, they sit nicely together now. If I take the EQ off, it sounds a lot muddier. Now a lot more definition and clarity there. Now it's just with it dry. Now add just a bit of reverb to add to it. It's not big on reverb, just a little bit. Just adds a little bit more life to the sound, I reckon. Okay, let's have a listen to the piano. Let's take this EQ off. Put the EQ on. Just a bit sharper, a bit clearer. Off. Back on. So just subtle changes, but they help enhance the mix. This unhinging tremolo. That's without the EQ. With EQ. A little bit less muddy. Okay, so I won't go through all the tracks because it'll take far too long to go through all the different EQ changes, etc. That's a bit of a rough overview of the mix. Let's have a listen to the whole mix together. Let's go a bit over these drums, and I solo these drums. So this is just the dry drums. Add a bit of reverb. And then a bit of the parallel compression. You can really hear that parallel compression pumping along, giving it some real strength to the signal. So yeah, that's the mix. And so when I was finished with that, I bounced out the final stereo bounce, and then went in to do the mastering, which I'll do in the next vlog. I'll catch you next time.